What, you thought I was fancy? Welcome back to LizCapism. This video is going to go over the assembly and finishing of my Herjolfsnes dress. If you missed the first video where I scaled up the pattern and made my mock-up, it will be linked in the description and the card above. I unpicked all of the seams from my fancy sewable tracing paper to get my final pattern pieces. Then a wash test. I planned to use this dress as everyday wear, so I needed to know how much the material would shrink in the wash. 2 identical pieces were cut and 1 washed. The camera angle is bad, but the shrinking was only from fraying. I pre-washed the rest of the fabric, and then it was time to iron. And iron. And iron. I ironed the pattern pieces flat and then began cutting out. This linen does not have a right side and a wrong side, so I marked them clearly with chalk. The original dress was made from wool. However, I wanted to use this linen I had in my stash. This is a slightly heavier than normal linen, so the thread count of the excavated garments and my linen were actually very similar. Assembling was almost the same as the mock-ups, except I was Frenching the seams, sewing the pieces wrong sides together, then encasing the raw seam with an additional seam, this time right sides together. If your head hurts, I don't blame you. Look up a tutorial sometime though, it worked very well. The only real difficulty I had with the seams came from the front gusset, which required a little bit more hand finishing to make sure it was secure. The sleeve geometry just about broke my tiny little mind. But I succeeded. I'm ludicrously proud of how the sleeve gussets turned out. Now to the finishing. The detail of this garment is where I really want to excel, since I so often phone it in at this stage. I read about the original seam finishing and the decorative elements the garments included. I wanted to follow the historical style of finishing as much as possible, but I was worried about how the linen would behave as compared to the original wool. So I did some tests, one in the original style and one with just a straight stitch. Meanwhile, let's catch up on our favorite Viking, the little Welsh Viking. Jimmy is your go-to for all things Viking-y. You should check him out in the card above. The original method, a decorative stab stitch along the edge accompanied by a delicate whip stitch to hold down the edge and prevent fraying, did the trick. So I started with a decorative stab stitch around the neckline and sleeve ends. I used my magnifier as this was very prominent decoration and I wanted to be as exact as possible. I find this finish very elegant, but in case I wasn't planning on it already, it was pretty obvious that the whip stitch was necessary. I did do a zigzag stitch on the fabric edges before turning them under, but without the whip stitch, they would not have stayed under. I added a buttonhole stitch along the bottom of the front slit. It created a nice reinforced edge which, if a little off color, is at least secure. Last thing was the hem. I used this handy device to keep an even measurement all the way around. I'm using a bone scorer here, which is usually used for bookmaking. I can get a very exact line this way, and then draw over with my chalk pencil afterwards. The scorer works really well on fabrics that wrinkle and crease easily, like linen or stiffer cottons. A little pinning, confirmation of a level hem, and I finished the hem by machine. Before I show you my delightful final results, I wanted to share some very exciting news. If you haven't heard already, Costtube has been very busy. Because of so many in-person events being cancelled, especially Costume College, we decided to put on a weekend of educational costume content. From July 30th until August 2nd, Costtube will be putting on a show for you all. There will be dozens of videos released that weekend, as well as live streams, panels, and Instagram events. And I will be hosting the Sunday Undies Instagram event, which I will talk about more in a later video. We're even hosting a Discord channel where you can come and mingle with other attendees. I am thrilled to be the moderator for the live Disabilities in Costuming panel that will be hosted on Snappy Dragon's channel. This panel will include Gilbert Dethalion, Nikki from Liam, Willoughby and Rose, Bernadette Banner, Faye Sterling, Yule Tyson, Scraps and Sequins, Clara Weber, Little Crocus, and Miss Snappy Dragon herself. All of these folks will be linked below. For more info on the events as they are announced, make sure to be following the Costtube Guide on Instagram. I also have the CocoVid Q&A archived in my Instagram stories. Make sure to subscribe for more videos, and in the meantime, let's show this old gal off.